Holy Week greetings and welcome to this NFCYM webinar. I'm Michael Tyson, Director of Ministry Formation at NFCYM, and I'm grateful to welcome over 200 ministry leaders from across the U.S. to this panel presentation entitled Families at Home, Managing and Working Amidst a Stay-at-Home Reality. Before we turn it over to our moderator and panelists, let me offer a few of the GoToWebinar helpful hints for those who may be new to this. First, to let you know that all your microphone connections have been muted. If you experience sound or viewing issues, it's usually connected to the quality of your internet connection and/or your computer's speaker default selection, as well as how many programs you or those around you have running. So you may wish to close out of some if you begin experiencing some technical difficulties. If your webinar screen disappears, click on that GoToWebinar flower power icon in your menu bar and it should magically reappear. If you lose your menu bar, look for the red arrow on the right side of your screen and click on that to expand the bar and show the drop-down menus. And you thought all bars were closed. You can adjust the size of your screen as needed by clicking and dragging on the line between the camera view and the slide screen. This webinar presentation will last about an hour, and we'll hold the questions and answers portion until the end. But we do invite you to comment and add your own thoughts and questions at any time during the presentation by typing them into your question chat box and sending them along. I'll repost them so all can view them during the webinar. This webinar is being recorded, and everyone who has registered will receive an email within 2 hours after its completion with a link to the recording. Please feel free to share this with your friends and colleagues. A final note before I turn it over, NFCYM staff members have been very busy hosting listening sessions and conversations with ministry leaders, with clergy, and with organizational members, attempting to respond to the needs we're hearing as quickly as possible. A primary need we're hearing daily is to continue to be formed and resourced through webinars. So we've added a few special sessions in the coming weeks, and I'll be posting those titles and descriptions shortly, as well as the links on how you can register. So from all of us at NFCYM, please know you and those you minister to and with remain in our thoughts and prayers as we continue to accompany you during this unprecedented time. And now it's my pleasure and honor to introduce today's moderator, who in turn will introduce the other panel members. So here, turning it over to Rich Donovan from the Archdiocese of Newark.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for being here today. We're going to get started because we have 3 great speakers today that want to share their knowledge and what they've been experiencing this topic today. So we're going to delve right into prayer, actually. So if we maybe just take a moment, kind of quiet ourselves down. I don't know, maybe like you, with me, I know it's been almost as busy here at home as it's been in the office, actually. So you're probably running from maybe doing laundry, fighting in and out from the grocery store. Maybe some of you are in good weather and we're able to go outside and do some work today. But why don't we take a moment just to kind of quiet ourselves down so we can start in prayer today. And if you could join me in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, amen. And we pray the prayer that you should hopefully see on your screen right now. Lord, I know that you came to save your people out of life's challenges and to offer to us compassion. Therefore, Lord, I will trust in you and will not be afraid, because you, God, are my salvation. In this work situation, I declare that you are my daily strength and my song. In you, there is victory. So, Father, I pray this prayer of thanks, knowing that you will always make a way. Yes, it's in your name, amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. And so let me just take a moment to introduce myself to all of you. My name is Rich Donovan. I am one of the Associate Directors for Youth Ministry here in the lovely Archdiocese of Newark in New Jersey. We are, unfortunately, definitely one of the hot spots and epicenters right now of COVID-19. Most of us are going on week 4 of our stay at home, new reality that we're going through here. So I have been in diocesan ministry for over 10 years now. I've been a parish youth minister for over 20. So I do my parish little fun-filled thing is on pretty much weekends, part-time, and I'm in the office when we're open, full-time. So I figured I'd share with you, this is my home environment, my work environment, because we're going to ask each of our panelists today to share also a little about theirs. And the first question we were actually going to ask each of them as they share about their space, what are you learning from working from home during this crisis? So you see two pictures here in front of you. One is actually my lovely dining room table here at Casa de Donovan, where I kind of set up. My children don't like to eat at the dining room table. They like to eat everywhere else except the dining room table. So it's a fight to try to get them to sit here. So I kind of take over the table for most of the day, and this is where I kind of do my work. I have a picture of my refrigerator. If any of you on this call might know me, I am a tad bit of an anal retentive micromanaging freak. And so when this all started, I had to make sure I was pretty regimented. I'm the type of guy that does to-do lists to make my to-do lists. So we have at Casa de Donovan, we post each week my meeting schedule, so I know when I have meetings, so my kids know when I have something going on. And the cafe here at Casa de Donovan opens for breakfast and dinner, a late breakfast and an early dinner. And we put up the dinner menu actually, so they know what's going on. So I don't need to answer the question 1,600 times while I'm trying to get work done during the day. What's for dinner tonight? So they can go look and see that kind of themselves. So what I've been kind of learning working from home, I will say, is that I almost feel I'm doing more work now at home than I am in the office, trying to stay on top of emails. Everyone in the world, including NFCYM, is doing webinars and sharing resources, which are great, but trying to collate all this and try to get it out to people becomes almost like a momentous task to stay on top of. I am trying to get myself more into a routine. I feel like I'm back in college, not waking up until 10 or so in the morning, staying up till 2 o'clock at night. So trying to get more of a professional type schedule going, things like that. And also very much knowing that I am a type of person that does work from home. Traditionally, I do work here at my house when I need to, but knowing I need to shut the laptop and walk away and actually spend some time with family, with friends, and not worrying about getting that email returned or updating that website and things like that. So I'm going to introduce our first panelist here. She's coming from chilly Wisconsin, where it's a little cold up there. So we have Julianne Stanz, who will be our next person we're going to take a look at. So Julianne, if you'd like to share a little bit about your workspace, what you're learning about working from home.
Yeah, my name is Julianne. I work here in the frozen tundra of the Midwest, Green Bay, Wisconsin. We have 156 parishes in our diocese, and I've been serving them along with some great folks here for the past 12 years. I've worked in new evangelization, discipleship, leadership development, young adult ministry, kind of like most parishes do a little bit of all things. The workspace that you see here is actually my prayer space, which has been sort of commandeered temporarily to be my workspace. And so the stained glass window is St. Patrick. I grew up in Ireland. My husband found him on an auction site and salvaged him. And my kids play their keyboard up here. They do some reading. And so I don't have a huge surface area to work from. So that's challenging. But I've been telling some of our ministry folks that ministry right now, being at home, being a mom, being a minister, it's kind of like a trail mix. Some days you get more fruit than nuts. Some days you get more nuts than fruit. And it's okay. You have to recognize this is a special time for us as a country and just let some things go. I would say the one thing that I think is really, really important right now about working from home is to be nourished by putting away the screens, connecting with the folks in your family, picking up the phone, calling people you love. And also, I think it's really important to get outside and take walks. I think the beauty of nature right now, even though I'm looking enviously at Rosemarie's background right now, there's so much beauty that nourishes our souls. It's how God speaks to us. And so for ministers who are feeling maybe a little blue these days about not connecting with people, which is why we go into ministry, allow the word of God to speak to you in the world and in the scriptures. I'm just delighted to be here with you all today.
Thank you, Julianne. We're delighted to have you with us. So our second member of our panel today is Rosemarie Banich, and she is the one that we are probably very jealous of her sitting in her nice scenic view right there. Why don't you share us a little bit about your workspace?
Sure. Good morning.
Share with us about how you're dealing, what you're learning from all this.
Sure, absolutely. So my name is Rosemarie. I'm the Director of Evangelization and Parish Life for the Archdiocese of Miami. And I did try to be as Miami as possible for this webinar. But there is a reason why I'm outside. I'll explain in a second, because that photo is of my work at home space, and with my work at home companion, Bruno, always by my side. And it is what we call the Florida room here in Florida. We did it, what you would call dens, I suppose, family rooms in other places. We call them the Florida room here. But it's very wide open. And so my house is all wide open. And so my husband, who is working from home, is about, I don't know, 15 feet away. And my son is just finished his school for the day. So he's ravenous. So he's in the kitchen eating, which is another 15 feet away. So it was actually better for me to move outside because there's nowhere else that's really enclosed other than a closet or a bedroom inside the house. But I've learned so much about myself and my work process and just my own being through this. We've been working at home now, I want to say for 3 weeks at the Archdiocese of Miami. And I have to say, one of the biggest takeaways for me has been that the excuses that I have given myself for the reason that I don't get certain things done, both at work and also at home, really were lies, I've discovered. So the reason that my guest room is not all organized, or that my photo albums from my 2005 vacation aren't done, is not because I don't have the time to do it. It's because either I really don't want to do it, or I don't value it enough, or I don't prioritize it. So I've really come to understand that. And it's the same with work. In my office, we have a lot of big events, as all of us do in ministry, and it always feels that we're riding the tide, the waves of these big events. And we're always, it's like a mantra for us. Oh, after this event, after the middle school conference, then we can attend to that. And after this, when we can attend to that. Well, there is no more events. And like you said, Rich, I'm as busy, if not busier than ever, but it's really forced me to really look at what is I have to do. And now that I don't have that excuse, well, I can't get to that right now because I'm too busy with events. And to force myself to put things on my high priority list that I maybe just don't really like doing. There's things that all of us don't really like doing. And so that realization that it's not always external factors, that there's a lot of internal also that's driving my day. And so adjusting to that.
Great. Thanks, Rosemarie. Appreciate it. Thanks for the comments. And our last panelist for today, let me just will be Debbie Gonzalez, and she's coming to us from the Dallas area. So, Deb, why don't you share a little about your space and kind of share what you're learning from working from home during all this?
Well, hello, good afternoon. My name is Debbie Gonzalez, and I am in a suburban parish in the Diocese of Dallas in Texas. I work for a very large parish. We have over 8,000 families. It's a very, very active parish. We have over 60 staff at the parish. And so it's not just the activity of parish life, but also the busyness of the office that I'm so used to being around people all day long, whether it's parishioners or ministry leaders coming in or just staff walking in and out of your office. And I live by myself. I'm not married and I don't have children. So going from a day-to-day busyness, very loud office environment to what the only noise that happens is the noise that I make. And I'm an introvert, so I don't make that much noise. So that's been quite an adjustment for me, is to not be around people. And so there's moments when it can be very isolating in that sense, but this has pushed me to learn more about technology. I think so many people now are doing Zoom calls or webinars like this one, just to keep in touch. And so that's helped, but that's also pushed my boundaries to where I may have left that to somebody else before. If they could schedule a Zoom call or they could schedule some of the technology, now I'm challenging myself to have to do that in order to keep up with ministry leaders or even co-workers. And like many of you have mentioned, it does feel like I'm working a whole lot more. There's a whole lot of mental power going on than it happened before. And maybe that might be that after almost 19 years in ministry, maybe we get into a rhythm or a complacency, I don't know. And this situation has pushed us to think of ministry in a much different way that's more digital and not just within the walls of ministry. So we've really had to reprogram ourselves in how to remain active as a parish, just not in the facilities. So it's constant work.
Deb, thanks. You helped very nicely segue us actually to the first question I have for the three of you today. So you mentioned a little bit coming from a big staff to being home by yourself now. So my first question for the three of you, maybe you could share with everyone here today, is what do you miss? I mean, a lot of us go from, like, Rosemarie, you mentioned the event to event to event to event, basically. What do you miss right now, and how are you kind of coping with that? If you're the go type person, or you are that extrovert that loves to be around people and talk with people, how are the three of you coping with this right now, and with all these changes and the losses that we're going through each day now?
Well, I'll jump in and answer that. Without a doubt, the thing I miss the most is my co-workers at the Pastoral Center in general, but specifically my team and the Secretariat of Parish Life. Really miss that camaraderie, that day-to-day interaction. We started having a weekly. My boss, Stephen Colella, started. I forget what he calls it. The coffee break. I forget what, but we started a Zoom call on Monday mornings where there's no agenda. We don't talk really about work, but we just kind of check in. And there's 7 of us right now in that team, and we just seeing everybody's face makes me so happy, and hearing their day to day. So I definitely, if you're not doing that with the people that you work with, hopefully you love and miss the people that you work with. And we found that, again, separate. We may have other meetings throughout the week for work, but this one is strictly, grab your cup of coffee, and we're just going to kind of check in and see how everybody's doing.
Yeah, I resonate with what Rosemarie is saying. For me, I think my life has become more structured now, especially with having 3 children under the age of 10 in the home. Get up, breakfast at a certain time, lunches at a certain time. I miss the unpredictability of ministry, what I call the ministry of interruptions, where parish leaders would come into my office. I have 2 big comfy chairs, and I'm a tea drinker, but I always offer coffee as well. Would you like a cup of tea? And just to sit down and have that one-on-one, face-to-face with our parish leaders. I miss that. I miss seeing Father so-and-so kind of wander by the office, and you can tell he's not having a great day, and you say, hey, Father, you want to come in and chat? Or just the random, unpredictable nature of what ministry is a lot of times in parishes, or even at the diocese, is just having people, you don't know from day to day who's going to come by to have that conversation. When they say, hey, do you have a few minutes? I've realized when my husband says, I'm popping into Menards for a minute, the Menards minute is the longest minute in the history of ever. Like, it's a lie. It doesn't actually exist. A ministry 5 minutes is kind of the same. That, like, hey, can I check in for 5 minutes, becomes sometimes the best ministry opportunities that I've had that day. It's in the sharing of real life when you sit with somebody's struggles. Because of the unpredictability, I miss that. I miss just being able to minister in the present moment. And virtually is great. We're doing a lot of that. We're actually doing virtual happy hours with some of our teams when ministry is concluded. Grab your favorite beverage, be it coffee or something stronger, and connect after hours. And we've done that a few times. But for me, it's just that one-on-one conversation that I missed.
Right. Thanks, Julianne. Deb, I didn't know, maybe if you want to, because you said you were from a parish standpoint, maybe they're talking diocesan and things like that, but maybe from a parish standpoint, what is it maybe, that you're missing the most, I guess, right now?
There's a couple things. First of all, we have perpetual adoration 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I didn't realize just even if I'm not in the Adoration Chapel the whole day, every day, there's a sense of security that I miss about that in the same building that I work in. Just even when I would go to, we have several buildings on our campus, and just going across the building and passing by the Adoration Chapel, or maybe stopping in for just a quick few minutes. Yes, there's other ways to engage in prayer during my work day at home, but I miss that presence. And I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that until that's missing. But just like Julianne is saying, the unpredictability of parish life, where people just wandering in with just random questions. They may not even be looking for the service you provide in the office, but just engaging them in conversation, and then just getting into deep conversation about people's lives, and how the church can be a part of their lives. And just people wandering in for just different number of reasons. And the same thing, the random conversations with staff and clergy. It just makes me reflect on the fact that it really is a privilege to be in community.
Yeah. You know, I've been thinking as you all been talking. For me, I will say that definitely the things I miss are the things that would annoy me the most. Like, I miss the kid not turning in their permission slip when you've told them 8 times to turn it in, because you don't have to worry about that. You know, I miss the fact my office is right by the front door, so the mailman comes by twice a day, you know, and I have to get up to let him in, or the UPS guy coming by, you know, to say hello, and, you know, just a quick conversation about the football game the night before or something like that. Just those little things, actually, it seems, you know, that we kind of miss, we take for granted. I think, you know, a lot of us, you know, we just go through our daily lives, we go through the motions, basically, we kind of forget those things. You know, Julianne, you mentioned a little bit about trying to balance the kids at home and everything like that. So I was wondering maybe if you could share, all you could share, how are you kind of navigating through, now that we're home and we're playing the roles of cooks, you know, cleaners, everything like that, parents full time, while also trying to maintain ministry. You know, how are you all trying to navigate the demands of all that, of trying to be everything, everyone at all time, and still get everything accomplished? So how are you making that all work?
Thanks, Rich. You know, you can see if you look behind me, I started off with my beautiful window of St. Patrick, but look what's beneath him. You can see it's my son's minifigures. He's into Star Wars. And nice. So this morning I was on a meeting with our bishop and his council, and all of a sudden I see a hand sneaking in like this to lay these figures up. And, you know, internally I'm kind of panicking just a little bit, and saying to him, you know, giving him the eye, the mom eye, you know what that looks like go no further. But I think this is where we have to relax a lot in terms of the expectations that we have on ourselves. This is an unprecedented time for us as a country, and also for us in ministry. It's helping us become more missionary in our discipleship and reach out to each other in different ways, but it's also creating a lot of internal stresses. A lot of the folks that we've been working with in our parishes are telling us that they're experiencing a lot of trauma. And trauma from being inside, trauma from grieving their old identities, grieving the events that they have, the plans that they have. So I think it's okay to be in this space. As I often tell ministers, be where your feet are. Be present to what's in front of you right now. Be attentive. You know, Brother Lawrence of the Resurrection says, you know, Jesus is the Lord of all. He's the Lord of the pots and the pans. So if all we have to give the Lord is the mess of our lives right now, and the gifts that we're trying to live out, to be present, give it over wholeheartedly to him. You know, there's a huge difference in being obedient and surrendering. And I think this is for a moment, it is for us in Lent especially, a moment of obedience, but even more so surrender. Surrender those expectations and let the Lord allow himself to minister to you in this real time. So those would be some of the things that just come to mind for me.
Thanks, Julianne, for sharing. Appreciate that. Rosemarie or Deb?
Sure. I have a little bit of, maybe other people on the webinar have a similar experience. My husband travels a lot of the year for his work. And so I'm now both very much, and our son, enjoying having, you know, a dad at home, but it's you know, it's not completely novel, but it's definitely not our norm. It's not our norm, you know. My son and I, we have our routine because it's usually the two of us, and it has been I wouldn't give it up. You know, it's been wonderful and amazing. But it is, you know, following what Julianne said about, you know, I always just have to let go. You know, that the way that I and other people maybe whose spouses aren't home as much as they are all of a sudden now are experiencing something similar. That you know, and I always remind myself, this is going to pass. This is not forever. And so, you know, if there's a certain way that I'm used to doing something. On the other hand, I think it's also important for us, most of us who are, you know, now families home together, to allow kind of roles to shift a little, you know, to kind of go with the flow. And my husband, you know, is cooking almost every night now, you know, and so who am I to complain about where he puts, the way he, you know, puts a sink in the dish. I mean, you know, puts a dish in the sink. He's cooking dinner, you know? And so I think that there's, you know, a little transition time for families, that when you're kind of readjusting the normal flow of things at home, but letting go and reminding yourself that, you know, it is temporary, and I know I'm going to miss it. You know, I know that as much as I want this to pass, right now, I know that when this passes, he's going to go back to work, and he's going to be back somewhere other than here in Miami. And we're going to go look back at these days, you know, right now with none of us ill in the family, you know, and wish we could be back together that much as a family.
Thanks, Rosemarie. Thanks. Deb, I don't know if you have anything to share. I mean, just, I know, even just family in general, like, you know, work, and I'm sure you were mentioning making Zoom calls and things. Just trying to keep base with your larger family. Has there been any tough between work and trying to family calling you, bugging you all the time, checking in on you or anything? Or?
Well, I have a mom who is a retired nurse.
Okay.
And generally speaking, cold and flu season, she's always bugging me. And so, but that's just the care of a mother, you know, so I don't ever complain about that. But even more so now, and then seeing that the roles change. My mom is in her early 70s now, and she's very, very active. She's a very active retiree. And
Great.
so roles have changed in please stay home, you know, calling her and saying, please stay home. I know you want to go out with your friends. This is not the time to do so. And have the grocery store put your groceries together, and she doesn't trust someone touching her tomatoes. And so, you know, it's just how roles have shifted in the family in that sense. So, but here at home by myself, I feel like I've got more control than I did before when I'm in the office, as far as it's time to shut down, it's time to go do something else. Sometimes I do wish there was someone here to say, that's enough work for today. You can just cut it off. So I have to set some timers for myself, where before it was like, you know, security's going to come and put the alarm on. That was I got to go home. And here it's kind of hard to turn it off sometimes. So I'm still working with that. I'm still trying to find a good balance, and then so that I have time to reach out to other people.
Right. Thanks. You know, this is a very unique time we're all living in. It's definitely the most unique Holy Week I could ever recall in my life. And I've seen, you know, on Facebook and Instagram and different things like that, some families really embracing this and creating prayer spaces in their homes, and you know, whether it be Star Wars action figures and things like that, you know, or different things, but giving them spaces actually that they can enter into prayer together. So I'm wondering, actually, how are you, each of you, taking care of you personally and your families, your spiritual life and your spiritual health? How are you navigating that during these times right now? So.
Thank goodness for live stream mass. You know, that's become a regular part of our life. And we've enjoyed, my family, we lived in Los Angeles for a long time. And so it's been amazing. We've been able to actually attend mass at our old church in Los Angeles. You know, and it's a challenge though, because my son is in high school, is in Catholic high school, and you know, so he's missing a lot of what goes on in school. One of the reasons we have him in Catholic school, although his school has done virtual youth group at night, and they actually did do they did a live stream school mass, which was lovely. And one of the alums of the school, who's a very young priest, celebrated the mass, and it was actually assigned to the kids, and they watched it and wrote a reflection on it. So I'm very grateful for that, because I would say that's a bigger challenge. There's only so much like live streaming, that a 17-year-old, almost 17-year-old, is going to want to, well, he'll watch YouTube all day long, but there's only so much, live stream mass and, adoration. And so that I think is probably my biggest challenge across the board for our family, is that piece of it. To hear from others.
Yeah, this is such a difficult situation, and I resonate with that, Rosemarie. I think, ironically, in a hyper-connected modality, which is the way that we're ministering from right now, there's so much noise coming through in that we're always on a screen, we have headbuds in. And so for me, having time for silence is really, really important. Taking time to shut everything down in our homes so that our children are not on their screens. One of the things that we've been doing is we've been reading a book together. So my husband, we love Roald Dahl. My husband has his copy of Roald Dahl. I have my copy of Roald Dahl. We read Matilda. The children played different characters, and it just allowed us to have a different kind of dialogue in our house. But then after that, being very, very quiet. And the other thing I think is really important is one of the first attributes that we learn about God in the Bible is that God is a creator. That's the very first thing we learn about God in Genesis, is that he creates. And so I think because there's so much noise and you're typing and you're around technology a lot, I think having time to create and having a space for silence is really important right now, and doing some of those creative attributes as well.
Okay. Deb, anything you want to maybe chime in on that?
Well, maybe I'm a little bit of the opposite in that I have a little too much silence. And so reaching out to people that will form, even if it's a little digital community, so that we can pray together. Because I find that being by myself all day, when it comes to prayer time, I have a really difficult time silencing my mind. My mind is the loudest person in the loudest thing in the room. And so being with others in community for prayer, even if it's digitally or by phone, is a big help to me. So I'm still working on silencing the mind. That's not new to this situation, but it's just more magnified right now.
Gotcha.
Well,
Okay.
I forgot to mention one thing. This is a really good time to do some good spiritual reading. And Jacques Philippe is he's one the author I love. And he is maintaining a sense of peace right now. His little treatise on peace has been really important for me personally. And I've been recommending it to people to take some time for that spiritual reading, because we sometimes push that off and we don't have time for it. So that can be helpful for people too.
Yeah.
If I could throw in a plug, Julianne, you just reminded me that in one of our programs here in the Archdiocese, it's a parish missionary disciple program, and we had just met with the parishes that are in the current cohort 2 weeks before this all really started to, to affect our lives. And I had assigned, every month we assigned some reading, and I had assigned it, with a Lenten idea, not knowing that it would be the lentiest of all Lents, some chapters from the Soul of the Apostolate. Which is also a work that focuses a lot on the interior life. And so I had no idea, of course, that we would be, have such a great opportunity to focus on our interior life. And so even though we're not meeting in person, tomorrow I'm actually doing an online book club type discussion with whoever wants to from those parishes for an hour to talk about the Soul of the Apostolate, because that's another one that, really puts your mind focused on your interior life, and the fact that if we don't have a strong interior life, the work, the external work that we're trying to do is going to be pale compared to what it should be.
Right. Thank you. So, Julianne, how many weeks have you been at a stay home now, basically, in your area?
About 3 weeks. I went to the Archdiocese of New York, actually, right around the end of February, beginning of March, to do an event for them. And so I came back and went into quarantine right away, just because of the risk factor. I was safe and healthy, but I've been home for that length of time. And our children came home first, and then I came home. So it all happened what's amazing is the resiliency of people right now. And I'm just looking at some of the comments in the box and people saying, I'm not navigating this as well right now. I'm fearful. Be gentle with yourself. Be excessively gentle, as we say in Ireland. We don't know how to do this. Life has changed. So give yourself the freedom to just recognize how you really feel. Don't stay in your head with that, but connect that to how you're feeling and ask God to really enter into that space right now. So about 3 weeks where it's been a little chaotic for me.
Thank you. Rosemarie, how long have you been home for stay at home now?
I want to say this is probably our 3rd week
Okay.
of being at home.
Okay. And Debbie, how long have you been home now, stay at home?
This is our 3rd week as well.
Okay. So collectively across the board, we're roughly 3 weeks in. So I guess what I was going to ask was, being that you've been home for 3 weeks now, and, we're all still probably getting a little stir crazy, I'm sure. But from all of this, we always want to try to look at the God's graces that can come of something of this. So what possibly could you maybe share in the 3 weeks you've been home now at this? What have been maybe some of the hidden gifts or maybe the graces that have come out of this that maybe we wouldn't have had if this hadn't happened? So what have you kind of taken away from this? So maybe some hidden gifts or maybe some graces that you've come out in the last 3 weeks of going through this. I've stumped them all, ladies and gentlemen.
I've got one, Rich, and it's a very interesting one. But mail, I've been so thankful for mail, like physically touching a card that someone has mailed, or as we say in Ireland, posted to me. I am so grateful for the myriad of all the ways that we stay in touch. But like friends that are having their children color pictures, the neighbor who drops off chocolate on my doorstep because that is my love language. Just the simple ways, the surprising creative ways that people are showing up in my life right now. And mail was one of the first things that came to me, just because recently I got a care package for my family in Ireland because I can't be with them for St. Patrick's Day or Easter, and just the delight of opening up familiar goods and just sharing that love across the mail.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'd say for me, the big one is probably, as I mentioned before, my husband being home, who's travels so much the year. So that's absolutely the biggest. I think also, although it comes at such a great cost for the entire world, again, it's nothing that I would wish for, but for me, the slowing down, our whole family was operating at a manic pace in between work and I'm in school at Franciscan and activities, and it was manic and crazy and not healthy, and so that is something that I'm already really thinking a lot about and praying about. How am I going to, when we get back into, like, when we're allowed to go to work and allowed to have events, I hope that I'm able to strike a better compromise and a better balance in the real world when we're not under these constrictions, because I don't think in retrospect that the way I was living and that my family was living was the way that we're meant to live. I don't believe that this is the way we're meant to live either, but I think that it's somewhere in between. I think it is somewhere in between.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with Rosemarie that, my schedule was hectic as well, and it was all about work. And kind of like what you were mentioning, Rich, and the things that would have annoyed me before, I miss now. And so just a heightened sense of appreciation for being able to invite a friend out to lunch and just catching up, but so now phone calls are more intentional, or let's say Zoom calls, whatever it is. They're just more intentional and really wanting to get to see how people really are doing versus just saying, oh, it's good, or it's just busy, but really engaging each other in a more intentional and deeper way. And so I guess strengthening relationships is really what I'm getting at. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. So I've heard, said more and more when I go on these Zoom calls, and we have people that we work in ministry with, that we can talk to our families about ministry and the struggles we go through, but it's always good to be around people that are in the field or in the trenches because we get it. We can talk about it and things like that. So I'm just wondering, before we get to our final question, maybe if you could share, because since we are all here, around the same table together and have the common thing of doing ministry, we might look like we all have it together, and that's what we try to portray to our teams and to our coworkers all the time. But maybe we kind of share what's something really that you're struggling with right now in all this, being at home, trying to manage the work, trying to manage the family, worrying about finance, everything. What's something that you're struggling with right now? And I know I'm going off the cuff here, and we didn't rehearse this ahead of time, so I apologize, ladies. So.
I think for me is the being by myself, and our county, Dallas County, is the hardest hit in Texas, and so our county officials are really just kind of clamping us down and really wanting everybody to stay, even recommending not going to the grocery store or pharmacy until it's absolutely essential. And I'm thinking, like, well, that was my only little outlet, was to go to the grocery store. And so still managing that silence in my home is still a struggle from day to day. So people aren't available all day on the phone. You kind of have to schedule that. So it's still something that I'm managing, is the silence in my home. So Christian music is something I try to play as much as possible, but sometimes it's too distracting, and I can't work with that.
Gotcha. Thanks, Deb.
For me, I think it's the uncertainty that you just don't know how long this is going to go on. And then I think about, I spend a lot of time thinking about our people, our parish ministers, our youth ministers, our family care ministers, who are on the front lines of walking with people into this situation. So many of our parishioners have been affected. We have healthcare providers, police officers that are parts of our community. And I worry for our ministers and how they are going to be affected walking with these folks. And so the anxiety that they're carrying around grieving and providing for funerals, and all the uncertainty that goes with how to walk with people in uncertain times, that's where my heart is right now. It's with our folks in our parishes and how they can recognize within themselves the gifts that they have to call upon so that they feel resilient and strong right now, especially at this uncertain time. But it's knowing that for some areas, it's going to be much more acute than other areas. And so how to help folks across all the different parishes stay connected as one community that's all grieving, that's all experiencing the anxiety. And so if you are in that place as a parish minister where you're feeling uncertain and anxious of heart right now, I think litanies and repetitious prayers that give your mind a chance to relax, the litany of trust, the litany of humility has been really with me this Lent, especially that litany of trust. And if you find yourself, your attention level is ratcheting up, kind of bring that down a little bit with that.
Thanks, Julianne.
I would concur with what Julianne was saying. However, us here in Miami at the Pastoral Center, we haven't yet, that I know of, I haven't heard of anyone being ill, and I'm sure there are people. But I would say, in addition to just the general anxiety over knowing what's going on in the world. And in addition, if there's something that kind of keeps me up at night right now, it's kind of anticipating what are going to be the needs. Like how I talked earlier about like getting back into real life personally, but so from a ministerial point of view, that is a whole other concern. Like I worry, like, I want to make sure that we're all ready to go, that when our church doors open again, like what has happened? Who did we lose during this time that maybe thought, well, church wasn't that important to them anyway, and now it's even less important? Or and then there's going to be other people who didn't realize how much they missed it until they couldn't go in, So that's something that I have to say is probably my biggest kind of professional and personal, because all of us, there's no dividing for us, professional and personal. Like I don't want to be caught unprepared. Like there's not a second chance.
Right.
This is like the United States has pushed the pause button.
Yep.
And so there's no second chance, hopefully ever again, this happening, and it's never happened before. And so I do, I'm always writing, I'm making lists and trying to read as much as I can with this fear that like, oh my gosh, if they say on Monday the church is open again, I want to make sure that we're all, prepared to do what, to respond appropriately. And I don't know what that response should be, and that's what causes me anxiety.
Right, I hear you. Yeah, just kind of, Julianne, you kind of mentioned a little bit of the same, Rosemarie, the unknown. For me, I know, as I mentioned at the beginning, I'm an anal retentive micromanaging freak. So, internally, this is eating away at me inside. I mean, I will be fully honest, the first couple of nights when this all started here in Jersey and we were kind of stay at home, I did not sleep at night. Like I was up all night long, like just in my mind going through this thing, like, as a person that methodically tries to think out things, and is used to doing ministry a certain way, it's kind of taken everything you know about ministry and thrown it out the window and literally have to start back over again. Trying to think, well, how am I doing this? How am I doing that? How is this going to take place? Oh my God, what happens if this happens? And, things like that. So I will say the struggle for me, really, the unknown. Before we kind of wrap up with any questions from participants, and I know Michael has been passing along some to us, I thought maybe from all of you, from the vast knowledge that you have and the different settings that you do ministry in, is there anything maybe you might want to pass along, maybe some practical suggestions or maybe some best practices that you might want? I know, Julianne, you shared a couple, and Rosemarie also different things, and Deb, you mentioned listen to some Christian music, so as long as it doesn't get too distracting. But maybe some practical things that we could utilize to try to help balance that home work all at the same time that we could share with the people on our webinar today.
Well, I'd be glad to share something that it's a tool that I've used for many years, but I really had to refine it and really stick to it, which is I like to schedule my day usually in 30-minute increments. But when I'm at work, if I have a big event, well, yeah, the entire day is going to be spent on preparing for an event, And so that kind of structure being taken away. Now, make sure I structure in there. Not so much my husband. He's pretty good about, balancing work and not work. But, with my son, because he just before we started this, he came out of his room. He'd been on Zoom classes all morning and he was drained. He was really drained because sitting in his dark bedroom, listening to a teacher, two different teachers talk for an hour and a half each, that is draining. And so I think it's really important, they don't have, most adolescents don't still have those kind of life skills. And he just knows he feels like a yucky, what, why do I feel like this? And so I encourage him, to go get on your bike and ride around the block, and don't look at school. He's like, well, I need to start doing my homework. It's like, no, don't, go for a ride around the block. So I think that definitely helping the young, teenagers in particular who, I was just thinking about you, Julianne, with the little kids. I had said to my husband, God, in a way, I wish that our son was younger when this was all happening, because, you know, and now I know people with younger kids are saying, no way, you know, but, you know, the grass is always greener. But, you know, as teenagers, an excuse for them to just like be in their room looking at the screen all day, it's like your worst case scenario, you know. And I think, oh, if he was little, we'd be doing arts and crafts projects and we'd be doing this together, which I know is not realistic, but, you know, we always like to imagine things differently. But I think especially with teenagers, it's really important that we have to show them, we have to model for them, because that's, they don't naturally know that. And so we have to kind of model for them how this kind of new reality works. And that means, yeah, if you were at regular school, you wouldn't take off an hour in the middle of the school day to go do something, but you would also not be just sitting in your room all day. You would be moving around between classes and talking to people. And so I think that's really important right now, is to model for them. And I'm the same, I'm sure all the same. Like, I can sit there at night with my laptop on my lap while the family's trying to watch a movie, and I'm, you know, in a Zoom, and I'm in this and I'm in that. And I have to always remind myself that, you know, they emulate what we do much more than what we say. What I say to my son is so unimportant. I feel the older he gets, the words that come out of my mouth, but what I do is really, really important.
On that note, Rosemarie, something I think is really important is not to try and fill everybody's day at every moment. It's really important to give space for creativity and boredom to set in. And that means even for ourselves. God will often speak in that time when you are just out walking and you have nothing else on your agenda except to notice and be aware and to be attuned. And I think the same is really true for children. I also think children know they can sense tension really easily. And so what we've been doing at night is kind of a little variation on our family rosary. We gather them together for prayer, and before we pray the Our Father or Hail Mary, we invite each child to pray an intention that's on their heart, and it just allows them to open up and give space to what they may be feeling or noticing in us, like, you know, prayers for Mama that she can finish her project. Well, that's a sign to me that maybe I need to be more present and less on my computer. So it's allowing those little touchstones of grace. Because one of the things I want to say to the folks that are listening in is, there is not going to be a new normal for us as a church. Right now, how we live and how we function as Christians, how we witness to each other is going to change forever. And there's great creativity that has bubbled up, and people are yearning for the sacraments and for grace and ritual and touch and smells and sounds of our faith. And that will be a catalyst for how our church engages with people's real needs. And so I would say we knew we could no longer do business as usual, but this crisis has given us a real opportunity to say, what is the spiritual moment that we as a church are called to? And our greatest gift is in the presence of Jesus, and the presence of Jesus we can bring. And we can help others see. And so allow yourself to have time to even enter into that conversation, because there's excitement and renewal and gift there. And the Lord wants that for us right now as well.
Amen. Thank you, Julianne. So Deb, do you have anything you want to add? Give us, any suggestion or practice, maybe something you're doing or something you've read or heard about?
Well, I just read this question about someone who gets into the zone and loses track of working at home.
Right.
They work nonstop hours. I was like that at the very beginning when I first started working from home, 14 or 12-hour days. When just realizing, why do I have a headache? Well, it's midnight and I haven't had dinner. And so I would say to this person to at least schedule meals and schedule breaks, and to pay attention to how your body is speaking to you. If you have headaches, or maybe you're having heart palpitations because anxiety is a real thing, is to find those anchors that can snap you out of that, and just being okay with walking away from work, even if it's for just a few minutes, just kind of shake it out in a sense, and just making it okay that if I don't finish what I have to do today, it's going to be okay. I know we all probably have some deadlines, but the working nonstop for hours, it's just not good for us, you know. And I think it's just going to compound itself later, and you might have a reaction much later in weeks if you don't listen to the alarms that your body is sending out. So I just wanted to speak to that because I was there 2.5 weeks ago. Exactly that.
Yeah, I will definitely attest to that. You know, I'm the type of person that would leave the office and come home and then do work for about 4 or 5 hours at home. And so one of the things I've tried really to do is by a certain point at night is to shut the laptop off. And I've watched more TV, I think, in the last 4 weeks than I have in my entire life. My PlayStation games are definitely on point right now. So just trying to find some different ways, basically, you know, than just doing grossing and work. The work will wait till tomorrow. It'll still be there. So we're going to start trying to bring this. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, in God's great sense of humor, I had given up TV for Lent. So didn't go well.
Yeah. I gave up Chipotle and I've kept hard to that. So so we're going to start trying to bring this plane in for landing. We want to be respectful of people's times here. It's coming up to 3 o'clock. Some of you very nicely have been seeing some of the questions on the panel, and you've mentioned a couple different things as we've been going through these. But I thought maybe just to try to touch base, I've seen a couple of these questions pop up. So I know the one we talked, someone just mentioned here about it's difficult to live Holy Week. Any thoughts? I mean, you know, I know so many, I mean, it's difficult, as you mentioned, the sights, the sounds, the physical, you know, touch and of everything of experiencing our sacraments and our liturgies and our celebrations is going to be very difficult for the next couple of weeks. But there are so many, I know, instances out there where parishes and dioceses are providing live stream things and that you can do. You know, I saw one parish actually encourage them, you know, to set up their own little prayer space for the week with, like, you know, a little cup and a plate and, you know, cross, so they can go through the different things of the Triduum in the next couple of days. So just maybe any ideas you might have for how to maybe try to go living Holy Week this week while we're home with our families.
I see that Milagros asked the question, and so
Yes.
Something that I grew up as a tradition in my family was visiting 7 churches on a Holy Thursday, and so I'm going to miss that very much. So I actually this morning started planning my virtual pilgrimage. So I'm picking 7 churches around the world, and I'm going to visit them all on Holy Thursday.
Nice.
You know, to try to recreate to the best of our ability now that tradition, which was so important to me growing up.
I love that, Rosemarie. That's really practical. For me with little kids, the food is really important. And so we will bake hot cross buns. I grew up with those. We will make special treats for Easter that are from my culture, but we'll do family foot washing on Thursday. We'll do, we try and mimic as much as possible in the smells and the sounds what we see. So we will venerate the cross on Good Friday. And I would say for especially with little kids or even older ones, having that opportunity to really incorporate more of the ritual traditions, some of the smells, some of the sounds, some of the food, really take the time to enter in, be creative about that. Family foot washing if you've never done it, reading the scriptures, meditating on those. Those are all really good things you can do pretty easily.
Right.
I just wanted to add that since we've been at home, we quickly formed a team at the parish to develop at-home guides to live Mass while it's live streaming. And so tomorrow we'll publish the guides for Holy Thursday and Good Friday, which will have 3 components of prepare, participate, and then practice. And so even after you live stream the Mass, it'll have, like, you know, examples like what Julianne is saying, family foot washing, or how you decorate your home, your front doors, activities for kids or videos for kids, or some questions where families can continue the discussion even after Mass. So I can put the link to our website there. So if people want to download those guides, people have been very responsive to them to help them just generate some ideas for how to live, especially Holy Week, but all of the liturgies.
Thanks, Deb. Deb, maybe I might recommend maybe you email that. You can put it in the comment, but maybe also email it to Michael, because then maybe we can get it on the NFCYM website for other people when they send their weekly blast out, so that other people could benefit from that also.
Yeah.
Well, my phone says Verizon's telling me 3 o'clock. So Julianne, Rosemarie, and Deb, I want to thank you all for your insights today, for your comments. Hopefully the people that are on this or watch this later will benefit from this. I am hoping and praying that Michael is still like Oz and he's there behind the curtain somewhere and he's going to jump in now and start talking to us, and he'll take over to kind of wrap us up here. So I want to thank you again for everyone that joined this call or is watching this later. Thank you for joining us, and make sure you check out more upcoming NFCYM webinars. So Michael, I turn it over to you.
And I'll just remain a voice off screen, but just to thank again the panel and Rich for you stepping in, especially at the last minute, to take on this role. Really appreciate it. And just a reminder to everyone, our next webinar will be on April 15th, presented by Chris Westley and Dr. Charlotte McCorkadale on steps and strategies for online ministry. So hopefully all can make that. But thank you, panel, and thank you, audience, for signing in, being with us, and allowing us to accompany you in this journey of faith. Blessings to all. Happy Holy Week. Happy Easter. He is risen. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Thank you all. Have a great day.